Welcome back to the Common Good podcast. We had a little glitch there. So we didn't banish Dan. Dan just had he was our producer and drives a lot of this. We just had an internet
Yeah,
problem on his end.
yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
So, anyways, let me continue with the point I was
please,
making.
because I need
When
to
we,
check something. So you just don't act like I'm ignoring you, or don't think I'm
yeah,
ignoring
I,
you.
I'm gonna vamp so you can do what you need to do there, Doug.
Gonna
Listen,
vent or vamp?
vamp. I might vent a little bit too. When we
Oh, here comes
call
Dan.
when we call these Republicans moderates,
Mm-hmm.
we're doing a great disservice to actual moderates because what we have here is not like and it we need to be precise with the language and not equivocate
Mm-hmm.
um temperamental moderacy
Mm-hmm.
with policy or political moderacy.
Oh, that's a
Moderacy, is
nice
that a
point.
word?
Yeah.
What we have with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and this whole crew, Chip Roy and all of these wackadoos that we saw a temperament that was extreme, a willingness to, you know, throw a fit if you don't get your way and blow
Mm-hmm.
things up. And it's very, there's a juvenile, immature kind of approach to it. What we see on, with the so-called moderates, the McCarthy voters, was a very sensible, even keeled, kind of approach, the desire to, not make waves and keep the rules a certain way and follow the rules, and we're not going to blow it all up. What we don't have is any difference in terms of policy.
Yeah,
These
that's right.
fights were not about policy.
No.
Every nominating speech said the same thing about open borders and defunding the IRS and all of the ridiculousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no difference when it comes to policy. What we have is a difference in temperament. And so I don't want to call these Republicans moderates because that does a real disservice. The moderates in the House are people like Dean Phillips of Minnesota. Like, he's a moderate.
Yeah.
Um, and these folks on the Republican side are not moderates. And I think it actually really hurts it. I think it hurts Democrats when
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
only the Gateses and the Boberts and the Chip Roys are labeled extreme.
Oh, I see what you're
Right.
saying. Mm-hmm.
Now,
I
what were
think
some of
that
the things that the holdouts gained as concessions? Now, I heard some things that on the
yeah.
surface sound fine, like we're going to vote on, term limits, or we're going to vote on balanced budget. On the surface, it's like, okay, those are
Yep.
Republican-ish things. But
Yep.
what were the deals that were made?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is so through most of its history, the House of Representatives has had a rule that um, one member can basically call for a vote of no confidence. For lack of a better, there's other terminology they use, but can call for the speaker to receive a vote of no confidence, the Speaker of the House. A few years ago, I don't know when, I got the impression that maybe it was during one of Nancy Pelosi's terms that got changed.
Yep.
That and I think the number, I don't know what the number is now. It might have to be a majority or something. Basically, it's kind of a Speaker Protection Act. Um, these House Republicans want it changed back to the any one member.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when people hear that, there's a couple things that happen. One is they think, oh my goodness, like we're going to have, unending impeachments. We're going to have unending, votes of no confidence on the Speaker of the
Mm-hmm.
House. I don't know. The rule has been this way for a long time. But I also feel like just because the rule has been some way for a long time doesn't mean like there's not, like, I don't buy into the founders had it right from the beginning and we have to go back to all of that.
Yeah,
So
and it
I
was
don't know.
right for. I mean, it was, as you say, that's how it was, and the reason Nancy Pelosi changed it just in 2018 was because that's what drove out Boehner. Boehner lost the speakership and negotiated to turn it over to Paul Ryan because of this. So it worked in previous times because there was not a large segment of Congress whose fundamental desire was to break Congress.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's where these people are. This is similar to Trump. Like, Trump wasn't saying, I'm going to bring a new approach. Trump said, because Bannon led him to this, and Roger Stone and others, you need to demolish what exists. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
have
I'm
to
gonna blow it all up.
blow it
Yeah.
all up.
Yeah.
You know,
And I saw
so that's the difference. And that's
Yeah.
why they moved it away. And that's why McCarthy didn't want to give it back to them, because everybody else would say, like, look, we're not going to get into this, and we're not going to have votes on a rolling basis about our confidence in the speaker. We're going to have a speaker vote, and then that's it, right? And if something goes wrong or there's some investigation, okay, but we're not going to get into this. This crowd, oh, they'll for sure get into this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
they
So that's
they wanted it for a reason. They're not the kind of people that are saying to themselves, oh, hey, here's the thing. I'm just a real traditionalist when it comes to the rules of the House, and I just really want to get back to the good old days in 2001 when we could call for a vote with one member. Let's return to our roots. Why did they want to get back to one? So any one of them could send an email to their constituents and get their $5 chip in and say, I brought down the speaker.
Yeah.
That's why so there's a reason they were asking for it. It's not like they bought an old house and they thought, let's just let's remodel this back to its vintage
let's
stage.
restore it.
Let's
Yeah.
put the spindles in on the stairwell that have always been here because I just love the old House of Representatives. They want it for a reason, because they're going to use it.
Yeah, and Lauren Boebert was on, the news talk shows bragging about how they had effectively shut down Congress, bragging that for every day Congress is in gridlock, Congress isn't spending the
Saving money,
taxpayers'
yeah.
money. And
Right.
the host had to be like, yeah, but all that money is already spent that Nancy Pelosi passed through.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just holding up the stuff that you say you want to get done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
So that was so the one vote, one member calling for a no confidence vote on the speaker is one thing. Another thing is the House Freedom Caucus. And if folks don't know, inside the House of Representatives, there are the dozens and dozens of caucuses. And those caucuses are people who are aligned for some reason. Some of them are one issue caucuses where everybody who agrees on, the need for solar panels. There's a solar panel caucus and a solar energy caucus, and they get together and they talk about how do we advance this issue. How do we work together to do that? There's caucuses for all sorts of reasons. There's bipartisan caucuses. Like, they're just all over the House. Like, it's an operating part of what happens. They're totally unofficial. Though, they'd have their own rules for who can be in and who can't be in. For instance, the Congressional Black Caucus has denied membership for Black Republican Congress people, which is, kind of interesting. That, shows it's just a point. So the House Freedom Caucus is one of these groups. I don't know how many members it has. Probably, I would guess 30 or so. Not all of them participated in the,
Insurrection.
in this second insurrection that we saw, play out over the weekend.
Yeah.
So there are House Freedom Caucus members who are more moderate in their temperament than some of these folks. So what was happening? Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance, is a Freedom Caucus member, but she was voting for Kevin McCarthy. So what the Freedom Caucus wanted is they wanted at least 4 of their members to be on the House Rules Committee, committee that makes referred to in the talking head media as the powerful rules committee, because it determines so much of what happens, in terms of protocol and all of it. And so they want 4 members, of 4 of their group on that committee. And apparently Kevin McCarthy has gone for that. Now, ultimately, committee membership is voted on by the whole House in the same way that Speaker of the House is voted on by everybody. So committee assignments are voted on by the entire House. And so whether McCarthy made this deal, whether he's able to keep his quote unquote moderate supporters, or to go along with it, that remains to be seen. It may or may not come to pass. So that's another one. The big one, though, is related to the debt ceiling and raising the debt ceiling, and this scare tactic that happens seems like every 18 months or so, where we've got to raise the debt ceiling, and we ought to have Fadl Kaboub, our wonderful economics wizard, explain this to us. I'm sure this is not the way to talk about it, but it's like the credit limit on your credit card. Like if you exceed that, you're going to be in trouble. You can't exceed that. And so there's this sense that if we hit the debt limit, we hit the debt ceiling, we'll default, and the world will end, and all of that.
Put at risk the credit rating of the United States of America, like happened in 2011 when these same people did the same thing. This time they want it built into the rules that they don't have to negotiate that. You have to reduce spending if you're going to increase the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
Which you're right. I mean, there's a trigger that's similar to your credit card, but what's not the same as your credit card is when you talk about a federal budget, the debt is not money you owe. The federal deficit is the difference between the amount of money the government has spent, put into the economy, and the amount of money the government has taken out of the economy, not the amount of money the government owes.
Yeah.
This major difference sits at the root. And we're going to have to talk about this for 2 doggone years, maybe for 20 years, because the Republicans are going to keep saying, giving the American taxpayers back their money. The federal government does not spend your tax dollars. The federal government spends the Treasury's money. The state, the county, the city governments, they spend your tax dollars, not the federal government. Taxes at the federal level, remove it from the system. Spending puts it into the economy. That's all it does. They don't take it out and then hold it and then spend it later like other governments do.
Yep.
So this is the thing they're going to keep bringing up, is that we have to keep our budget balanced, and they're putting it into the rules, and that's a really dangerous thing. That could threaten the well-being of the federal government. And the reason is because that's not how the federal government money works. the defaulting on our credit rating, or the downgrading of our credit rating in the United States, is not because someone thinks you're being fiscally irresponsible or responsible. It's because that's how it works. And this is the big dilemma.
Yeah.
So in other words, the reason we sell bonds or have a credit or whatever is because the government would rather not take the money out of the economy. They'd rather find another way to lock it up. So that's why it's done that way. That's why there's bonds and all the rest, because that can be a little bit confusing to people. But you know what the Republicans are not doing is explaining any of this to anybody.
No.
You need Ross Perot out there with that whiteboard again, or that big placard, and explain to people how it works.
Maybe Senator Katie Porter.
Katie Porter, yeah.
Senator
I was
Porter.
just going to say, let's get the
Senator.
She's now, apparently Porter. She's like, I'm not going to spend my 2 years. By the way, Robb announced this in the first part of the live stream before we went, before they tried to shut us down, before the Republican Congress tried to shut down our live stream.
I think it's Elon Musk, actually.
Or we just had a router problem. Katie Porter, who's a Vote Common Good booster and fashion model for Vote Common Good, is also the congresswoman from one of the congresswomen from California. She's running for Senate, just announced in California. She's apparently decided she's not going to spend her 2 years in the minority party in Congress doing nothing.
Yeah. And listen, one of
She's not going
the,
to sit on a committee and just waste her time while Jim
Yeah.
Jordan blabbers on like I was on a podcast.
yeah, there were so many amazing moments throughout the course of this, everything that happened. And I mean, one of my absolute favorites was that photo that came out of Katie Porter sitting in an orange outfit, with a incredulous look on her face, reading the book, the subtle art of not giving an F. And it just
I mean,
what
right on the line of hilarious and all right.
yeah. It was just one of those moments of Katie Porter masterfully highlighting the ridiculousness of what was happening on the other side of the aisle. And I shot her an email, and commented to her about this photo, and haven't heard back from her.
Oh, well, she's running for Senate. She had to get her
senatorial apparently, but I mean, now I know why. She was, busy making this decision to run for the United States
probably why
Senate,
she didn't email you back.
Yeah, that's why.
I mean, if you have a choice of stories, pick the better story.
I'm going with that.
If you don't know, just pick the better one. It just makes your day. Just makes your day
She
so
was
much
busy.
so much
What
more
was
pleasant.
on the lighter side of things? Did you have a favorite moment from all of this?
I
gotta say
watching
the
a
bad lip
congressman grab
readings.
another congressman and pull him back so he didn't punch Matt Gaetz in the face. That was
That
a
was
moment.
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike Rogers, the congressman from Alabama, with a really bad toupee.
And surprised it didn't come off, and it's because of solid glue. Glue.
I mean, would that have been something if he had his toupee ripped off? Oh, would have been amazing.
Well, what was yours, Dan? What was your moment?
Oh, all the like bad lip reading videos that came out from, trying to guess what, AOC is saying to Matt Gaetz or Paul Gossard or whatever. And just the funniest. It's what the internet was made for,
Totally.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, that's the thing that the secret, or that the freed up C-SPAN cams were able to do, because the C-SPAN cameras were under the direction of C-SPAN rather than the House, which controls them once Congress is session. That they were just roaming those things around and keeping them spotlighted on people. Watching how often these Congress people who act like they have nothing to do with the other party and all are sitting next to each other, are talking, are exchanging ideas, are interacting. Like that stuff is going on within the party, but also between the parties. And I'll tell you, but the big psychological takeaway that I took from this, one was I was a little bothered that a couple of the things that the hostage taking caucus wanted, I thought were pretty good ideas. It's like, okay, that they wanted to streamline things in the House. They want to take control away from the Speaker, I think is good. I wish they'd gone after the Hassert rule, which is the basic agreement that the party in charge will not bring any bill to the vote on the House floor that their own caucus does not support with more than 50%. So in other words, you can't strike a coalition deal about something. If 40% of Republicans support something and 65% of Democrats, by rules that they make for themselves, like the rules of the game, they can't bring that bill forward. This is why you never get bipartisan that's less than 100% of the caucus that's in charge. That's one of the rules. Could have changed that. But when they also said they wanted to decrease military spending, I was utterly shocked. Like, here's Freedom Caucus people, Republicans, saying, let's spend less money on the military. An incredible shift. Now, I think we should spend more money on the State Department that we spend on the military. I think we should spend more money on peacekeeping actions. I'm not an isolationist at all. I'm a globalist. but I don't think the military is the best place to spend all that money. There's other
Yeah.
places for national connection. That was a little shocking to me,
Well,
to find myself thinking, well, hey,
I don't.
good for them on that one at least.
Yeah. I think that is rooted in. It's not rooted in a desire to decrease military spending as much as it's rooted in a desire to um, decrease our support of Ukraine in the war against Russia. Now, I mean, hearing Matt Gaetz give speeches, nominating speeches, talking about special interest money and
Right up your alley.
lobbyists, and
Yeah.
I was like, dang, I'm actually agreeing with Matt Gaetz on some stuff, and the corrupting influence of those things. That was fantastic. I mean, there's two things for me when I think about like the absolute craziness of it. One was, Donald Trump getting involved, because I mean, we have speculated there's been the nightmare scenario of Donald Trump being elected speaker. Matt Gaetz voted for him, which immediately triggered a text from me to you guys, saying, "Whew, that was whew." It's like the borders are all moving there. So they
You got to put the
immediately
logo in front. You got to put the logo in front of the border.
Thank you.
So the Donald Trump getting that vote from Matt Gaetz was hilarious, and then when Matt Gaetz nominated Donald Trump, which actually which was different from just voting for him, which put his name up on the tote board that C-SPAN had, for instance, Donald Trump receiving a total of one vote. And then as that was being announced, there was laughter in the House of Representatives, which was really fantastic. So that was one thing. The other thing that was amazing to me was the evolution of George Santos. George Santos throughout this whole thing. So George Santos is the congressman from New York, Long Island, and he's the one that we've talked about over the last few podcasts about how he has fabricated his entire resume, his entire life story is all made up. And there was some question of whether or not he would be seated in the House of Representatives. He was, because Kevin McCarthy needed his vote, and it's just the first 2 days, George Santos was sitting all alone, and nobody would talk to him. There was even stories about some congressman came up to him, said hello, found out who he was, like found out his name, and like ran the other direction to get away.
Apparently, that guy doesn't watch much MSNBC either.
Yeah, seriously. After a couple of days, George Santos started to cozy up to the extreme temperamental, the temperamentally extreme part of the Republican Party. He's sitting over, spending a lot of time with Marjorie Taylor Greene. The two of them laughing it up.
Pictures of them just hamming it up together.
Absolutely. And it ultimately got to the point where, I don't know if you've seen the picture of George Santos has his phone and is showing other Congress people the amazing meme that was making the rounds of the I'm not a robot, choose the speaker. And there's, all the speakers, and then a couple of pictures of Kevin McCarthy. That meme that I texted you.
Yeah.
George Santos is showing it on the floor of the House to other Congress people. So, and then, and ultimately the best news for George Santos is that the Republicans have defunded the House Ethics Committee. And so, basically you can get away with anything now as a congressman, which is good for George Santos. But his evolution throughout those couple of days was really something to watch.
When did you see the image of him getting sworn in where he's flashing the white power sign?
Could that be true? Is that not a photoshopped photo where his hand down below has the...
No,
He looks like
N-
like an
There's
Orthodox
multiple
saint.
angles.
Yeah, no, it's not a Photoshop photo. It
Really?
happened, and I'm not sure it was when he was sworn in. I think it was before that. I think it was
Oh,
during one of the votes.
Yeah, I think
like
he's casting a
like he's
vote.
waving at somebody, or he's voting.
Well, he was, he stood up to when they called his, because at one point he missed his name. He would, like, the
Too busy
camera's on
looking at
him and they're like,
memes.
Santos.
He's like, that's not
Santos.
actually my name. That's not my name.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I made that up.
He's like, oh shoot, that's
Oh yeah,
me
that's
after all.
the name I'm going by.
I forgot. I was checking into a hotel under
So
aliens.
but yeah, absolute craziness.
Well, that wasn't the only big news story of the day. Something that matters a lot to a lot of us around here is that that Joe Biden went down to the border finally. Which, look, I'm a big Biden supporter. I'm glad they're doing some work on immigration. I'm in this little panel, this little online, keep up on what the Biden administration is doing about immigration. They want to do a lot of good things about it. This, in my view, was a bad week. The decisions that the Biden administration made, the way they capitulated to the narrative of Republicans about the border, the way they've tried to say that somehow fentanyl in the United States, the problem with fentanyl in the United States is that it's coming in. That the delivery system is where the problem is, not on the demand side. So instead of saying, what we're going to do about fentanyl, we're going to launch a major initiative to help people in the United States not be addicted to drugs like fentanyl. Instead, they've decided, what they want to do is try to link that to refugees and other migrants walking up to a border. To be preachy for a minute here, we were at the border, the three of us, over long periods of time, rode our bicycles across the country along the border, every single mile as close as we could get to it. Talk to people.
We were
all
right
over.
there where Biden was, that little section in El Paso. The
Right
photo
there.
we had on the screen.
Our friends work there. We'll be in touch with them very soon. We're going to be going back down there very soon. We invite people to come with us. What you know about drug trafficking is they're not putting it in the backpacks of people walking across the desert, even fentanyl, which is small, right? Let alone the larger size drugs. So rather than saying, where the Biden administration saying, look, we think fentanyl is a problem. Let's work on the demand side in the US. And if we're going to work on the delivery side, it's coming by truck, by boat, by train, and by airplane. It's not coming by foot. Of course not. And that they miss that messaging and they want to be hardline on this and say that if you're from any country other than Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba, three socialist run nations, then you're not going to be, we're going to keep Title 42 in place and keep using the Title 42 limitations to keep people out of the country. This is the number one talking point for Republicans is the border. And they're continuing to misnarrate this story. The Biden administration. The Obama administration did it. They were wrong on immigration. They were wrong on deportations. The Biden administration is wrong on this one. They have to get better on it. They have to pivot because to give up this one, they're going to gain no voters and they're just going to lose a bunch of people who would say, well, if you care about humanitarian efforts at all, then there's no difference between Democrats and Republicans. And I know that people think that's harsh and they think, no, there's a huge difference. And there could be, they're poising up for huge differences, right? But right now they're playing straight down the taunting of the Republicans, and they're going to get exactly what the Republicans want them to have, which is there's no amount of money you could spend that would make Republicans happy for border security. No amount. Mexico was going to pay for it. They didn't. They pumped millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. They pumped enough money in that you could buy potato chips for a year in the United States. That's how much money they put in, $7 billion. Rob, did you know that we spend $7 billion in the United States simply on potato chips? This commitment of Republicans to spend money on the border is insatiable. There's no amount you can spend because it's not a money spending problem. It's a policy problem. create a visa system by which people can come in the country, they can leave the country and come back in the country, they can work and they can leave, and it's less restrictive than it is now, and remove the quota system that says that no more than 15% of any visas a year can be offered to people from any one country. That makes no sense. And that's what's created the problem. It is the rules of immigration that are the problem. It's not the border wall. It's not the agents. It's not the river. It's not fentanyl. It's the rules. And there's a task force. I got an email about this morning, a task force together to look at this. That's a big thing. It's a very governmental thing. And Biden finally,
It's like a church putting together a committee. Like, yeah, we're gonna
totally. Let's study this. I'm not the class clown, but I'll study the class clown and learn how to be the class clown. Biden should have been down to that border week 1. I mean, I know that's a talking point for Republicans, but they got a point here. Kamala Harris, who was put in charge of the triangle, the triangle countries to solve it, they should have a permanent representative from the administration working along the border.
Yeah.
They don't. These are so solvable. It is just set aside all the humanitarian unbelievable crisis around the globe for refugees and migrants, and that we're in a 10-year pattern of massive migration that the world has never seen, for sure. The United States on the southern border could solve this if we chose to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Republicans don't want to solve it. I don't know why. I think electorally they would in 20 years do much better if they would, but they don't seem to believe that, so they're not going to.
Yeah.
That was the other big story in my mind of the week, was that Biden finally went down the board. Like this business about him over with Mitch McConnell over in Kentucky and Ohio, cheering on that they're going to build a bridge. Holy moly. I mean, I know people are like, what a beautiful split screen. The House can't get itself together, and look at this bipartisan effort on building a single bridge.
Yeah.
We live in a nation, I live in a city where one of our bridges just collapsed a few years ago. Remember? And cars drove right into the river. People died. Yeah, we got bridge problems all over. Like cheering on Mitch McConnell getting a bridge.
I'm glad they got a bridge. Vote yes on the spending package that gave the money to build that bridge?
Good point. No, I think he said no, let's not have the bridge, and then went to celebrate that that there was going to be a bridge.
Wants credit for the bridge.
Well, he was for the bridge before he was against the bridge.
Now, in much less substantive problems for Joe Biden, news broke yesterday that fewer than a dozen, but some number of classified documents were found in an office used by Joe Biden after he was vice president. Classified documents that apparently came with him from his time as being vice president. And as they were closing this office at, I believe it was the University of Pennsylvania, they discovered that these documents were there, notified the National Archives, his lawyers did, and returned them. This has produced an investigation into what took place and why those classified documents were not where they needed to be. Now, this is a nothing burger story, except that Donald Trump took hundreds of classified documents, and which led to the raid of Mar-a-Lago to retrieve them. So this is not good news, because what this does is this substantively this bump in the road here for Joe Biden. This oh shoot, you shouldn't have done that. But you found out that you did, you realized that you did it, and you made it right on your own. You confessed before you got caught. All of that good stuff. All of that, what it does is it undermines any credibility that exists in prosecuting and tracking down Donald Trump's theft of
Mm-hmm.
classified documents. What it does is it gives Republicans and the MAGA crowd and the Trump supporters the opportunity to say, see, everybody does it. It's no big deal.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and look, if it's true that this is a thing that happens to presidents and vice presidents, that somehow documents end up in their offices and they get put into boxes and they get taken to libraries or working offices like it did for Biden, or private residences, then say that happens, right?
Yep.
Like, tell all of us, oh, that's a thing that actually happens. So what made Donald Trump's situation different? If this is a thing that happens,
Mm-hmm.
why was Donald Trump's box situation not like the others?
Yep.
That would be a way to frame it. But I think you're exactly right. This is just the kind of stuff that makes a lot of us feel like, look, it would just be great to have a fresh start. Let's get some new blood in all this stuff, and I'm not talking about, the people that want to say, like, let's have a non-politician. I think we could see when you get non-politicians like Donald Trump trying to be politicians, it's really hard, especially if someone's, a slow learner and bad at life. They're not good at becoming a politician. So, when you can't make money off a casino, if you're such a bad business person that you fail and go bankrupt running a casino where the house always wins, you are really, really bad at your job. Let's start fresh with some people. I mean, I know that the House is going to be investigating Biden and Hunter Biden and all the rest of it. And it just feels like, could we all just have some new executive branch leadership options?
Yeah.
Because if you start going back, I mean, for some people, Bush was fresh, right? Young kind of governor. Some people, Clinton was sort of fresh and young, a young governor from Arkansas. Obama kind of felt that way. So I know we've had this, but boy, it sure has felt a lot like John Kerry and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, who's just gross, and now then Biden, and oh my goodness, the last 15 years has really felt like we can't seem to, you had this one little step out with Obama in there, but it just feels to me like, and I hope Biden decides that his best way to spend the next 2 years is not running as president. The best way to spend the next 2 years is to be a great president. That's what I hope he decides to do. And you can do some things when you're not running for re-election that you can't do when you're running for election. And that's what I hope. That's what I hope he does. Dan has just had enough, and he said, I'm going away.
It's one of those days where
I don't need you people.
The technology is just
so
it's 2023 world.
I know there's a big announcement coming at some point from Biden, and look, I'll likely be supporting him, in the next election. I can't imagine I wouldn't. With different levels of excitement and fervor, depending what he does on issues like immigration and on the death penalty. Rob, this week I'm going to be driving down to Oklahoma. Going to be in Oklahoma City to ask the governor there to not go through with a scheduled homicide. We will go to the governor's mansion there in Oklahoma and tell the governor, in case the governor's unaware, that someone is planning to kill someone, and the governor should stop it, because the state of Oklahoma is going to put a person to death and then sign a death certificate with the cause of death being homicide, because that's what it's called when a person intentionally inflicts death upon another person. They should stop the homicide that's going on. And the Biden administration should stop at the federal level and should not just say no, should not just say, Iran, the reason you're wrong about executing those two people is because they were good guys. Maybe we should say the reason you were wrong executing people is because governments shouldn't be killing people. It's a pretty basic. When the Constitution says that the government exists for establishing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a little hard to figure out in there how the government's job then is to kill someone.
Yeah.
Just ponder that for a minute.
Yeah.
The government exists for life, liberty, and the pursuit of fulfillment, happiness, enjoyment. And you can argue about what that means, if it means property rights or something else. Fair. But life is in there. And the government shouldn't be killing people.
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue on abortion about where life begins. You're pretty sure you're talking about a life when you're going to execute someone. You execute a woman or a man, no one's arguing if the person's alive, if the person's a human being, if the person has personhood. Those debates off the table. And yet people want to kill them.
Yeah. Well,
So
safe
anyway,
travels.
We're going to be talking about that when we're down there. So if you're following the live stream, you'll get some videos of that.
That'd be good.
Anything else on the political front, Robb Ryerse?
No, just everybody. This Katie Porter thing announcing for the United States Senate is exciting.
Yeah, when are we moving to California?
I didn't realize this, Doug. Dianne Feinstein has not yet announced what her plans are.
That she has not announced that she's not running?
Yeah.
Katie Porter said.
Yeah, she just I'm not going to wait in line. I'm going. And as a person who thinks that political seats don't belong to the politician occupying them, they belong to the people, and they ought to have as many choices as they possibly can to decide who they want to represent them. I love the fact that Katie Porter is not waiting in line for Dianne Feinstein to announce at 89 years old that she is not running for another 6-year term in the United States Senate, but she's going to jump in and do it. And so, yeah, everybody find Katie Porter's Act Blue and send some ducats our way. Send those $5 donations our way.
Chip in. Can you chip in $5?
Chip in $5 because Katie Porter does not take any PAC money, any corporate PAC money.
Okay. Any corporate PAC money? Just corporate PAC money? Does she take other PAC money? I don't know.
I know that she doesn't take any corporate PAC money.
Corporate PAC money. Yep. Individual donations, and we'll ask her if she takes other ones. Well, look, Katie Porter should be a senator.
Absolutely.
And I hope she is.
Yep.
All right, Rob. Is that good?
Have a good one.
Okay, y'all. We'll talk to you tomorrow.